Our first reading this evening comes from Rabbi Michael Schwartz, speaking of what it means to be celebrating the Passover story in a time of an ongoing global pandemic. The Hebrew word for Egypt, Mitzrayim, comes from the root tsar, which means narrow. In effect, Mitzrayim means the narrow places, or places of restriction and bondage. The biblical story of leaving Egypt has often been interpreted to mean psychologically freeing ourselves from those things which constrict or hold us back. This year, we are all living in Mitzrayim. Our freedom has been severely curtailed, and we are burdened with the anxiety and fear of these continuing uncertain times. We have some questions for reflection for you. Where do you feel stuck in narrow places this year? Where are your people, your family, or your community stuck? We invite you to turn to one or two neighbors and share. You can also silently reflect to yourself. Our friends on Zoom, if you want to put your thoughts in the chat box, you're welcome to do so. We'll give you 4 minutes and we'll come back in music. Where do you feel stuck in narrow places?
Our next reading is an excerpt from the book of Exodus, chapter 3. Now Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. God called to him from within the bush, "Moses, take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." The Lord said, "I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now, go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt."
And these words are adapted from Marge Piercy in her poem, Magid. The courage to let go of the door, the handle, the courage to leave the place whose language you learned as early as your own, whose customs, however dangerous or demeaning, bind you like a halter you have learned to pull inside to move your load. The land fertile with the blood spilled on it, the roads mapped and annotated for survival. The courage to walk out of the pain that is known into the pain that cannot be imagined. Mapless, walking into the wilderness, going barefoot with a canteen into the desert. My people are all born of wanderers with shoes under our pillows. Tonight we honor those people who changed, those who chose the desert over bondage, who walked into the strange and became strangers, and gave birth to children who could look down on them standing on their shoulders for having been slaves. We honor those who let go of everything but freedom, who ran, who revolted, who fought, who became other by saving themselves.
The Exodus story of liberation begins with God speaking to Moses from a bush that was burning but not consumed. It shocked Moses out of his daily routines and called him to a higher purpose. Whether or not God surprises us with miracles, we can find inspiration that moves us out of our comfortable routines and expands our understanding of what's possible beyond the narrow places.
What are the sources of love and inspiration that challenge you to imagine new possibilities and find your purpose? Where do we find the strength to leave the familiar and begin the journey toward liberation?
Next comes my favorite part of the story, the part with the drums. You all know the part of the story where the Israelites pass through the sea, where Charlton Heston raises up his mighty staff and a wind comes and it parts the waters. And once they arrive on the other side, the Egyptian army is wiped out in the waves behind them, and the Israelites are safe on the other side at last. And they throw this huge killer party. The women get out their drums, Miriam gets out her tambourine, and they sing and they dance all night long in celebration. It's called the Song at the Sea, and the words that they sang are the words that we just sang. Oziv ezimrat vayali lishua. My strength balanced with the song of God will be my salvation. That part of the Hebrew Bible, the words are structured differently. They're structured next to each other like two columns of water that part the way to freedom. What's incredible about this Song at the Sea, though, about this celebration, is that they had drums. First of all, that, as Joanna says here in our reading, she says there's this hidden wonder in the story that Miriam and the women have timbrels with them. Who, when fleeing for their lives, thinks to pack a timbrel? I would. Drummers. May this inspire us, Jo says, even in the moments of greatest uncertainty and urgency and fear, to still plan for joy. One of the incredible things about this celebration is that they hadn't arrived at the Promised Land. They weren't there. In fact, they knew that the Promised Land they were striving for was beyond the horizon that they could see, and it was a place that many of them would never arrive. But they celebrated the fact that they were on that journey, and they were making that journey together, in covenant with each other and with their God, marching towards that land of liberation, even if it was beyond the horizon they can see. So we invite you to reflect now. If you are feeling lost in the wilderness these days, living in times of dramatic and unpredictable headlines, feeling like maybe you're still stuck in some narrow places, if you are feeling like you are in the wilderness, how will you still plan for joy, even when liberation is beyond the horizon? I invite you to take another 3 or 4 minutes to chat with someone nearby or share your answers in the chat. How do you plan for joy even when you're feeling lost in the wilderness and liberation is still beyond the horizon?